Awesome. Alex, always a pleasure talking with you. Thank you for taking the time.
Thank you.
And let's get right into it. What do you want to talk about? Mindset, a bit of philosophy, wholesaling. I lead you, just lead the way. I'll just ask a couple of
If we
questions.
start if we start going to philosophy, this is going to be like a 10-hour podcast, and I'm sure we'll get to the bottom of nothing. I do think so. Last time we got together on your podcast, we talked a lot about mindset. I think that maybe some of the listeners want to know a little bit about kind of boots on the ground action. What's it like in the trenches, that sort of thing with
Yeah.
wholesaling.
That's
So
good.
maybe
That sounds good. Yeah. It's for those who may
okay.
not know.
So
Tell us what you do.
okay, so I'm a wholesaler, or at least I was doing wholesaling since pretty much like 2018, more full time. What a wholesaler does is everybody knows what a house flipper is, right? So a house flipper is someone who purchases a property with a contract.
Yep.
They renovate the property and they sell it for more profit than what they paid for it. Minus all expenses, all that, your net profit at the end. So a wholesaler doesn't do the house flipping; they flip the contract. So, for
That's what
example,
sounds way too easy there. I mean, they just flip the contract and make lots of money. What? Whoa. There's a catch there.
as we all know, everybody knows that it's difficult to find deals. And the
Yes,
way money
it
works
can
is
be.
not about, how tough something is. It's what kind of value are you bringing to the table? Are you bringing
Mhm.
something that's worth money? So in the case of, is it easy? I mean, everything has its challenges. Wholesaling has its ups and its downs. And this is something that we're seeing lately with the market. But the concept is simple. It's not easy to pull off, but the concept is simple.
How do you know it's a deal? Like from so you told me that you pick up the phone and the moment sometimes the way the person's talking with you, you know it's going to fly and it's going to be a good deal. So what are those elements of a good deal?
Maybe think of it almost like a detective or like a police officer, right? It's like people think that they can fool police officers, but they deal with people who lie to them all the time. And they know when
Mm,
someone is like, they got someone dead to rights. There's a gut, right?
yep.
They're not always right, of course, but the gut, intuition, is a kind of cognition. It's not just feelings, it's the history, the experiences, the emotions, or whatever, all tied together that lead to certain outcomes.
Yes.
So, if you get a phone call from someone, here's the thing: someone will call me on the phone, and if I get the sense that they're in control of the conversation or they're trying to control the conversation by
Mhm.
saying, "Yeah, I got your flyer. Properties on my neighborhood sold for $1 million.
Yep.
I know what my property is worth." Okay, this is a person who's like looking for as much money as possible. Already, they're basically disqualified. Like because as a
You,
wholesaler,
you
I
cut the conversation short and it's done. You know. That's
I
interesting.
always ask I always ask questions, but
Yeah.
it's a no in my mind, and they'll get the sense over the phone that it's a no from me, and then they get a sense of loss almost, right? So they want to kind of recover this phone call in some way and find out, well, what is it that
Yeah.
So they'll feel it over the phone.
So how do you know
Um,
when it's someone that they're motivated and they really need your service?
People who call and within the first couple of seconds saying like, "Hi, I need to sell my house." Like if that's like the first
Yeah,
sentence that comes out, it's already like, okay,
it's a good
now here's
sign.
someone who's telling me they're motivated. They haven't put up any walls. They haven't told me about prices. None of that crap, right? And immediately, and actually, maybe the way to think of it is almost like this: the mistake I used to make, and I often still make, is being rational. Like people tell me all the time, I overthink, right? And it's
Yeah.
like you try to be rational, you try to be logical. Human beings are emotional. First and
Yes,
foremost,
they
we're like
are.
95% emotion, 5% rational, right? If that, that's maybe generous.
That's
So,
funny. That's funny.
so
This is coming from from a philosophy major as well.
yeah,
Someone who's really logical. Typically, you're a logical individual, aren't you? Typically.
I think I'm about as human being as anybody else. However, I do have an awareness of the fallacies and the biases. I've heard the arguments before. So, in some respects, I have what you would call, I guess, knowledge or experience when it comes to logic and argument. But I'll still be like we have the same hardware and we're loaded with cognitive biases. So I'm bound
Yeah.
to make a mistake. It's just whether or not I can catch it.
I love that you're aware of it. That's the huge part about it because it's just something I would say as well. We are definitely emotional creatures that are hooked on dopamine. Definitely.
Dopamine, yes, the dopamine is part of that whole like wiring. It's like, hey, you did this thing. Here's the dopamine. That's that conduit to this end. Let's keep that up. That kind of thing. Yeah, and it's all there's chemical stuff, and Oh God, now we're gonna get into Atomic Habits. I don't know if you read Atomic Habits.
I love it. No, I finished it up. I've
That's a
been
whole
reading it,
thing.
rereading it over these parts of it. It's great.
It's a good book.
So you've got someone on the phone. They say, "I want to sell my
Yeah.
house." That's
Yes.
obviously of great chance that it's going to follow through. So
Going at me with rationalism, and they're saying, "Hey, I'm not going to be, I'm not going to be scammed. I'm not going to be had. I know the prices." Like you're getting at me very kind of like rational, and it's a little bit emotional too. But someone who calls me and they're just saying, "I need to sell," I go, "Okay, like what's going on?" It's like, well, I had this divorce and I lost my job, and it's like that's all kind of emotional stuff. We're not talking about the property, right? So that's a person, and you need to come at them with the emotion, and the emotion is not, let me steer this conversation. Just I'm here. Tell me what's going on. Let's build this relationship. And I've heard this before. It's okay. It's like
yeah,
you're trying to coach them through their emotions right now because you don't want to get them too emotional. We want to stay focused on the point at hand, but you're feeling out kind of where they're coming from, and that's actually the key to negotiations. Like I was again in the earlier days trying to be a lot more rational and methodical about it. Here's this strategy, here's this trick.
mm,
But the ultimate thing with negotiation is building that rapport because you need to understand what they need. It's not a
yes,
question of numbers a lot of the
mm,
time. Like, okay, so you want to divorce your husband, you hate his guts. Well, guess what? If you sell for less, that will stick it to him, right? So, like, I'm
you
not
said that.
like just an easy example, right? Yeah, I
That's
mean,
good. That's good.
man, yeah. If I get a call
I've
and
heard of
someone is going,
wholesalers spending 6 to 7 hours sitting with the homeowner, just trying to get a emotional connection and helping them out. And I was amazed when I heard this story.
especially in this market now, that relationship building and those hours that you put in is definitely more of a thing. And it's like, it's not really like you're sitting down 6 hours straight. I mean, maybe some do that.
Yep.
It's like an hour on the phone, and then like maybe you visit them, you spend 2 or 3 hours there, and
Mhm.
then like you work out an agreement, and there's like another hour or two on the phone or
Yeah.
whatever. It's like, yeah, you really have to massage that because what the seller needs to know, everybody has their why and like why they're doing what they're doing. The seller needs to know that you're serious, that you're competent, that you're trustworthy, that you listen most of all. Because
Yes.
people hate not being listened to. If they're coming at me with what's going on with their kids, and then I just go right into numbers,
Yeah.
I've ignored what they said,
Yeah.
and they don't that even if they don't rationally or cognitively bring that up to the top, they feel it. So
Mhm.
this is the thing: is the feeling aspect is very key. And by the way, since I'm on that subject of feel, this outfit that I have right here, right, this blue, there's all kinds of little things I try to do to
Oh,
massage,
so even the way
right?
you present yourself and the colors you wear. Oh, I love it. This is deep.
So rolled up cuffs, right? Like I get work done, I'm a regular guy, that kind of thing. I can't show up in a suit,
Yeah.
right? Because that's intimidating and it's all
Yes.
business, right? But
Yes.
this is something anybody might wear.
It's
And the other
casual.
thing too is the color, it's casual. And the color blue is there's some like research on this. There's all kinds of things that colors will mean to different people, but typically on average, people tend to regard blue as trustworthy. That's the kind of color they
Really.
associate with that. Oh yeah.
And
And the other thing too
calming.
is
I feel blue is calming as
hmm,
well.
it's not sharp. Like red is a little aggressive, right? We
Yes.
kind of feel that even if we don't, again, bring that to mind.
I'm glad I wore
The other thing too that's
my
a
green sweater. I was going to wear my red one. It was going to
too.
be really aggressive. I do I don't think I'm an aggressive individual, but I wear red sometimes. Yeah.
It
This
could have that impact. And maybe it doesn't mean anything, but it's always good to do little things. So
yeah,
like another
yeah.
one too is I always offer to bring coffee. Most of the time people turn it down. But
Okay.
when I get there, I ask them if they want coffee or tea, which is we're chatting, right? And the
Yeah.
reason for that is that when you have warmth in your hands, that
Mm.
warmth again gets associated with the feelings of the person you're engaged with. So it's kind of a warmth
Uh,
association, even though you didn't do anything yet.
that
And
is
this is
so
just get a
cool.
ways to get leverage. The other
Yeah,
thing
yeah.
too is when you're talking with someone, another key point is look at their feet. If their feet are pointed away from you, that means they're trying to exit this conversation. So this is good for
Yes,
networking
yes,
as
yes,
well.
yes.
But at a home, if they're busy, putting their feet everywhere, they should be at you, right? So if they're pointed away, that means you've ignored them, or that means you said something they don't like. Ask them questions about themselves. Find out again where their headspace is at. Have them again realize that you're hearing them, you're there for them, that sort of thing. Then they engage with you again. And the whole thing is not to, again, like you're not trying to manipulate anybody and lie, even
Mhm.
if you don't care about people. It's the idea is you're trying to get to an agreement. You're trying to get somebody
Yeah.
to yes, maybe from a no or maybe to a yes. And you have an easier time doing that if they feel comfortable around you. That's just
And
obvious.
it's a needed service. Like as a realtor myself, like I realized certain properties cannot go on the market. I saw this one lady. It was sad to see. She really had some mental illness over the years. Like we were in the house, there was so much stuff in the house. It was impossible to show or even list it. We had to go through, she was like a pack rat or some sort, and we had to go through like a maze just to get to the upstairs. Like in those situations, this is where your service comes in and it's valid. You're not trying to rip them off. You're trying to accommodate their needs as well, and make sure that they move on. It was impossible to list this place. It had to go through other means.
Coming from, that's usually the type of a seller we're dealing with. And the whole concept, again, like of ripping people off and whatever, it's like, I don't know how people think I do this. Like, why don't you show me how it's done? Go knock on a door and rip someone off. Let's go. Right?
Yeah,
Wait, unless you have a gun to their head,
yeah,
you're
yeah,
not gonna.
yeah,
So you don't have to do that, right? I get 100 no's. That's usual. I'm
yeah,
looking for the one yes, that
yeah.
1% that doesn't need highest and best for whatever reason. They've got a
Mhm.
headache, they can't deal with anymore, an ex-wife, a sickness, a house that's in disrepair. They have no point of commencement. They don't know anything. You gotta show them, hey, I'm here. Let's go. What do we need?
Mm.
Let's figure this out. We're working together. This is a partnership. It's not
Yeah,
me strong arming you into a
yeah.
position of losing money.
That's
It's,
very
hey,
important
I
to say
have to
because
buy
a
gear.
lot of people think that wholesaling that they're ripping the person off, but no, you're providing a service. You're solving their need or their pain point.
Times like the referral or not referrals, what's the word I'm looking for? When you get people's feedback from what you did, what's the word I'm looking for? Anyway, it escapes me at the moment.
Feedback.
But
Yeah.
this feedback that you get from sellers, most of the time, it's the same feedback with me. And you can check it out on my website because I put them up there. But it's usually the sense that, like, I was just scared. I thought I was going to be taken advantage of. I
Mm.
thought, people are going to come in here and think, things of me or whatever. And it's like, Alex just showed up. He was just kind. He had integrity and he walked me through some options. And at the end
Mhm.
of the day, it's simple. It's like, listen, I have to buy the property here. Does that work for you?
Yeah.
I'm not tricking people into saying yes. I'm not doing anything. If you can make more money and you have the time and it's not a headache for you, I'm happy for you.
Yeah.
Excellent. Go make it. We're not the right fit. You need
Yeah.
a realtor, not me. And that's the thing. Again, so on the call, first and foremost, you don't want to spend 6 hours talking to somebody who absolutely loves their property and they think it's worth billions and billions of dollars. Okay. You have to qualify the
Yeah.
lead. And I always
Yeah.
bring up, listen, I appreciate the call. It's great chatting with you. Let me just ask, why did you decide to call me rather than just going to an agent and listing for more money? And I throw in the more money straight
Yeah.
up because I'm acknowledging, like, listen, I'm not going to pay market. I can't have a business if I'm paying market. That's what you go
Mhm.
to realtors for. But you called me, so what gives? And they'll tell me
It's a
straight
good
up,
point.
I don't
That's
like
straight up. I
realtors.
love that. It's
Or
honest,
yeah, right, yeah,
direct, and
you put it
honest.
on the table because you're wasting everybody's time. You can't
Yeah.
like try to go and like fool someone into selling a property for like 20% less it's worth, right? It doesn't work that way. And I had to learn this too, like over time. It's like I'm trying to get deals, I'm trying to get someone to come down. I mean, of course you negotiate and you do all that stuff, right? But the point is that if someone mentally is at a position where they understand they can do better with someone else, you have nothing to
Yeah.
offer them.
And then
So they're
again,
going to leave. And
it's
that's
price for those people. Price isn't as important. Like the number isn't as important.
my guy that sold to me. I did this Barry deal, and he was telling me, I had other wholesalers in here. So why'd you talk to me? It's like, well, because they came in and they were him and Han and lowball and whatever.
Mm.
You gave me a price that was like what I needed, and that was enough for me. And you're
Yeah.
serious. You showed up. You gave me the deposit right away. Everything you said on the paperwork was done. There's just no headaches. Like he left like 30 grand potentially on the table, but didn't care.
Hmm.
It's like I
Yeah.
need to do it, of course, because interest rates are high and the materials are high, labor's high, time on market is weird. So we need the deals that we get them at. And sometimes we get lucky. If I can assign a property and make 20K or whatever, good for me. But that's
Yeah.
because it turns out that someone else, they had better financing options. They could lose that 20K to me because I would have to spend that 20K for the private, right? So
It
everybody
makes
wins.
sense. It makes sense for sure. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So what other things that you do in order to show trust and listening and getting the deal?
That's a great question. And the answer is you cannot be so a narcissist, I'm not calling anybody a narcissist, I'm saying a
Hmm.
narcissist, they are highly, highly skilled at displays of competence. So they are
Mm.
aware of how people perceive them. So if we take, for example, I don't want to get too political, let's say just say Trudeau. He's got beautiful hair, he's cute. And when times were tough with COVID, you may notice he had to start cracking down on people, that's when he grew his daddy beard.
Yeah.
His
He
daddy,
had
right?
longer
So
hair. It was
he had
stylish.
longer
It was like
hair,
he's getting his haircut.
he
He's
was all
getting
style. How to present is my
yeah.
point, right? But as far as his competence goes, I mean, that's pretty clear, right? So it's like, this is the thing. You can't fake genuineness. You can't fake integrity.
Hmm.
Don't go into a meeting, don't answer a call with the intent of trying to take from somebody. You don't have to do it that way. You find out where they're at, you find out what their needs are, you make your offer according to what you need to. And typically you want to go low so that they have room to bring you up. But yeah, you if you are the kind of person, like if you're not so great, like I'm kind of two ends of the spectrum in terms of let's say like openness. So I am a very open person and I can be extroverted, but personally I prefer to be like on my own. Like my favorite hobbies would be like, let's say, reading, skateboarding, spending time with my dogs and my wife. I don't need other people for this. This is
Hmm.
how I occupy my time.
Hmm.
So I am somewhat of an introvert. So I had to learn over time to listen to people because, again, coming out of college or university with this philosophy degree, I've got a big head now. It's like, oh, look at all the stuff I know. But the truth is, no one cares how much you know. They just want to know how much you care. So I had to unlearn.
Love it. I love what you said. Say that again.
People don't care how much you know. They only want to know how much you care.
Well put.
Or the other way of putting it is Wi-Fi. Oh no, what's it?
What's in it for me? What's in it for you?
IFM. Yeah, you tune in that radio. What's in it for me? Yeah,
Yeah.
what's in it for me? So that's what you always have to think about. Like, what value are you bringing to the table for this person?
Hmm.
Um, we decide, but deals are made and broken on emotional bases much of the time. At least in the case of wholesaling, because you're just looking for the person who doesn't need every last penny.
Okay.
And oftentimes people will call me. Go ahead.
So what about from the so then you basically assign it to somebody else, the buyer. You'd have a buyer, a few buyers here. How do you know it's a good deal for them? What's that?
As I look at, so they will decide if it's a good deal for them.
Okay.
Convince them. What I do is I take a look at some comparable properties, both in the as is state and then in the after repair value state.
Hmm.
So basically, just for everybody to know, here's a quick, easy way to do some math, right?
Okay.
Take the after repair value of a property. Let's say it's like $700,000 or $1 million. Let's just say $1 million. It's easier, right?
Hmm.
Um, Take 20% off of that after repair value, reduce like minus your renovation budget, and that's your purchase price. Nice and easy. So if it's going to take 100 grand, you know the property right now. You have to strip everything back. You have to do electrical, maybe
Hmm.
some plumbing work. Maybe you got to get a permit in there. Maybe you got to do whatever. Let's just say it's 100 grand. You know all that ahead of time. Take that out. That's how you get to your purchase price. And usually, if I buy it there, people, most investors have like tighter numbers, like better lending options or whatever. So they don't need necessarily that kind of a jump. I can usually squeeze in like maybe a 5 or 10% fee if I get it at that number that I would buy it at.
You're saying if it's a
Times are a
million
bit tighter,
dollars
but
after repair value, 800 is the ideal kind of price range.
renovation cost, so it would probably be 700. Let's say if it was 100K.
Yeah.
So
Plus the renovation
if
cost.
I get
Okay.
it, so yeah, so if I get 700K, I might be able to sign it for like 5, 10, 15, 20, 30, whatever it is,
Yeah.
and that depends really on what's going on in the market, what my buyer's appetite is, what lenders are saying, what
Hmm.
politicians are saying, these kinds of things. And sometimes if you get a deal and it turns out it's like, a couple things can happen. One thing is you'll get a deal that you see and then other investors don't see it. Or it may be like, let's say, too small. It's like, well, you can still make 30K. It's like, yeah, but is it worth my time? I need a bigger
Yeah,
discount,
that's true. Yeah,
right?
that's true. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a big one because
Yeah.
it's a lot of basically you can spend all that time there, but for 30, it's not like you can probably get more elsewhere.
So
So I have to consider that as well.
people will do it for whatever reason. They want to keep their guys busy. Like
Yeah.
one investor I know, he's like, Alex, I just want to keep my wife busy. Just buy me a deal. I don't really care. I'll give you money. Just want to keep her busy, make a little bit. I don't really care. But the other thing too, what was I going to say there? They don't see it because it's not worth it. Other times it's just because they're a bit trepidatious, and I don't blame them because ultimately they depend on their lenders, and if the lenders are a bit wary, their hands are tied, right? So if I have a good relationship, let's say with private lenders, and I get the feedback from the community that hey, we're not touching this, I can either drop my assignment fee, or I just flip it, or I let the deal go, which can happen. I've only
Yeah.
let a couple of deals go before, but the other thing too is when you're thinking about like getting a property under contract, maybe assigning it or flipping it, you have to also know, where does your money get highest and best? So
Hmm.
paint, as we all know, is the highest rate of return. If you
Hmm.
buy a property and just paint it, you're going to get something like 60, 70% or whatever on that, right? And
Yes.
it's easier to do, shorter timeline, and so on and so forth. You can do what's called a wholesale, for example. So if a property is basically in decent shape, all it needs is a couple light fixtures, a couple knobs, and like a paint job. You're looking at like maybe between let's say a 10 or 15K rental or something like that. You don't need to go all out. You want to get back on the market and you want to have it priced low. That's what, like, people want their starter homes. It can
Hmm.
work for certain types of properties that way
Those
too.
are great. I got a buddy who did that last year. I think he bought it on Friday, cleaned it up on the weekend, and the realtor's like, we should just put it back on the market for this price. He says, if you can get this price,
Exactly.
that's perfect. And that's what they did.
Yeah, in that case, I mean, again, that would be your smaller fee. Like, let's say you're only gonna make 30K on that or whatever. But if you got like 5 or 6 of those, rather
Hey,
than like a full gut,
hey,
permits, new electrical,
sounds exhausting. That's a
architecture,
lot of
forget it.
work.
It's
That's a lot of work.
exhausting.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and you're stressed out the whole time because anything can go wrong. Like, much better to do something quick. And that's why, by the way, I do like the wholesale deals. Again, it's simple, right? I don't have to do the fuss of managing a team and dealing with realtors, dealing with the market, whatever. Someone takes off my plate. Yeah, I make far less than I would if I flipped it. But if I'm getting volume, it's out in the wash. It's easier for me to answer calls, go to appointments, than to manage teams or whatever at scale.
Hmm. That makes
But
sense.
right now, I want to point out,
Yep.
just so everybody, I don't get everybody too excited. My field of market, especially in 2023, that was a dismal year for wholesaling. I mean,
It
there's
was.
definitely
It was.
people like,
It was rough. Yeah, it was. I felt it was a bit rough. Yes.
veterans and I guess like the SLG guys and whatever, they're operating a deal cranking machine. Like, they've got infrastructure, they've got people, and they've got like
Got to keep it going.
either buildings they own or rent, and they're cranking out crazy marketing. Like, those guys are going to be getting like a lot of the deals. But the problem with that too is that if you want to scale your business up to that model, that's a lot more stress and time on your hands. um Also, the risk, I guess, of keeping up the marketing and the rents and all that, and you really got to get your deal flow. You have to hit targets. If it's smaller, like, I only at one time, I think the most people I had at one time was like 4 people, and that was basically just me sending them off to appointments and then getting the calls, and they would deal calls and whatever. So but that dwindled as time went on because the deals got fewer and fewer, especially
Mhm.
after 2022, the interest
So
rate
what's
change.
your take on 2024? Well, how do you see it playing out?
Yes, and everybody has a different perspective. There is some sign that interest rates, especially by spring on the next announcement, they may come down slightly, or they may, I mean, maybe slightly is kind of what we're anticipating. But again, it ultimately depends on what Trudeau says, or some other activities in the market. There's something larger at play than just saying, well, here's the indicators, so this is what's going to happen. Like, we don't
Hmm.
know. There's variables, right? That could
Hmm.
change. But what we do know is that there's pent up demand. There's way fewer houses. I think I chatted with you about, asked you about Kingston housing. You're saying there's like no starts for was there no
They
starts in
stopped. They
2023?
stopped building construction. They stopped new houses because newer houses, the older ones from the previous year, were cheaper than the newer ones, and they just had to just stop. They just
Well,
stopped
there you go,
construction. It
right?
just stopped. The whole thing just stopped. I think it was in September. I mean, it's going to start back up, but like, we need housing. We're in a housing crisis, and all of a sudden, with the interest rate, everything
Exactly.
just stopped, and
Something
it's a
has to give.
huge factor in purchasing properties and construction, and just not building. Like, I think in Kingston alone, they built about 200 houses, new houses. That affected everybody, like the window people, from the counter people, kitchen people, from the carpenters, the plumbers. You can feel it.
That the average, let's just say, contractor, I mean, maybe not so much now, but for a while there, especially during COVID, people got the attitude of DIY. Before the interest rate hike, they're like, let's just get out lines of credit, let's just get into debt, and we'll do the renovations ourselves, and then we'll either refinance or sell. And then 2022 change happened, but for that period there and onward, there's a lot of people trying to do it themselves, and also to mitigate costs, because if interest rates are higher, well, maybe I can't contract this out. Maybe I should do the
Mhm.
bathroom or
I
whatever, and
couldn't
then
couldn't find
get someone to
anybody.
do the roof.
We were so busy.
No,
It was
that's
too
okay.
busy.
Everyone was
Yeah,
so busy.
so
Yeah,
busy.
yeah, yeah. So anyway, for 2024, I mean, I'm changing my model around. I'm not doing wholesaling. Like, even the last few weeks ago, I sent or two weeks ago, I sent out some mailers out in Barrie as well as out in Kingston,
Mhm.
and I got like 2 phone calls, and both of them, one of them was a guy who wanted to get MLS price without a realtor. the other person misunderstood. They're like, "Hi, do you have properties?" I'm like, "No, no, I want the property." It's like, that's like
They
$4,000
clearly
right
didn't
there. So
read
it's
your
like,
flyer. Like, what's going on?
I mean, yeah, I don't know how much simpler I need to make it. Like here's the recent one I can show everybody. I switched it over to more of a, like before we did like the handwritten note,
Yeah.
right? So it would be printed. So we would have one copy of a handwritten, and my wife's handwriting is way better than mine, so I had her do it, and then we just printed those copies. This one we used like a straight up font,
It
and the
looks
font that
good.
we used is like a little bit rounder. It looks nice, right? It's like kind of like sleek. It's like
It's
modern,
friendly. It's a
easy to
friendly
see.
font.
Exactly. And also the thing to note too is that this is actually different. We had to change the colors to make it simple, but I just used black and then blue, I think. So that's like white in there for the actual one that we sent out. So that's a way to cut down your cost. The flyers are a cheap thing to do. But the thing is, again, we went absolutely bonkers with flyers back in 2018, 2019, 2020. And other people were ramping it up too. And it was just the whole of Ontario was just it was just raining down
Hmm.
flyers. So now we're in 2024, 4 years after the peak when we already went crazy. There's so many people trying to get into it. People have New Year's resolutions. They're trying to get into it. I don't know. There's just way too much noise. And sellers are in the position where they're like, hey, my mortgage, if I sell this property and buy another one, is going to be double. No point. They're going to hold out as long as they can, or again, maybe do the work themselves or whatever. Again, the people we're looking for are not going to be those types of people. We want to get people who are in a position where they just can't or won't deal with that property. And there's always going to be deals there, but I feel like they're kind of holding out. And especially even if you do get one under contract, what you can expect now in terms of wholesaling is far lower fees because assignment fees, because you've got buyers who are conscious of the market and dealing with the higher rate of interest and they're trepidatious lenders. And then you've got sellers who need to get everything they can to put something down, something else, or to pay rent, or to do whatever it is they got to do. So the margin gets pinched in the middle for wholesalers. It's a tough time. So I think going towards flipping for 2024 makes more sense. But oh my God, if I can even tell you a little bit about Hamilton, I'm going to
Yeah,
a
yeah,
property,
sure,
two
sure.
properties today.
Yeah.
So here's what's going on in Hamilton. There is something like 157 listings right now that have been on the market for 100 plus days. And
Wow.
out of that, I think half of them are 100 and plus 125, 130 plus days. Like I'm looking at a comp for a property that's full. It's beautiful. And they even did a unit in the basement. They listed it 3 times beforehand, roughly 30 days, 30 days, 30 days. And they dropped it like grand from what they originally started, 170 grand from what they originally started. And it's still stayed on the market for 111 days.
What's going on in Hamilton?
It's like whole well, it was that pocket in particular I'm looking at. It's got trouble. It's you can't say all of Hamilton is that way. I mean, if
Yeah.
you got the mountain properties or you got the properties that are 1.5 million, you got people with cash. That's a different story, right? But for your kind of entry level homes, it just seems that we're kind of at this like 700,000, like mentally buyers at the 700,000 sort of range, or even mentally or in terms of
Hmm.
affordability there. So they're trying to get as much possible out of that property. If you skimp, like I was talking to an investor, for example, he's like, yeah, I have one kind of near the mountain area. And I skipped out on like baseboards and doors. I figured, they look good enough. We'll do everything new and whatever. But he knew, like, it was like, well, everything was nice, but he knew he didn't do the doors. And some of the feedback was like, I don't know, it's nice, but, and that's the thing. Sometimes people
He
don't even
finished off
articulate
a
it, but they
property without
feel it.
doors?
No, no, the doors were there. He just left the original ones. They were just like, I don't know, painted or
Oh,
touched
okay.
up or
Okay,
whatever.
okay. Yeah, yeah,
So he
yeah.
didn't replace, he didn't get
Yeah.
like nicer doors. He didn't get nicer trim. It was kind of the
Hmm.
older looking trim that he
Yes.
just painted over, did whatever. And
Yep.
that's the thing. It's like these little things. People are going, hey, I'm spending all this goddamn money on interest. I want
Yeah,
something
yeah.
ATTV. I want something I don't have to touch. Like,
It makes
yeah,
sense.
it's a tough
Like
time.
something's going to
Yeah,
give. Something's going to give, and something's going to get.
absolutely.
Like people are going to be cutting corners somewhere, and that's where you see them.
That's for sure. And buyers are hip to this. So you have to play a different game now. You got to go all in. You got to have you still have to control your budget, of course, but you have to touch everything and you have to try and find a way to make these deals work and assume, at least in the area I was looking at, that you're going to be like 3-4 months before you actually get it sold, which is another usually 30 to 60 days
Ooh,
to actual closing. It's
that
bad,
could
right? So
that could take a hit in the profit as well.
looking at like 50% interest from private hard money, or if you're looking at even like 12 or whatever, and you're going to like, man, that there goes your profit, right?
Yeah. Okay, so
So
what
yeah.
about when you deal with these potential buyers?
Yes.
How does that look
So
like? And what is it there? What are their fears or their thoughts on this? And what should they be, how should they be conversing with you about this particular deal?
well, if I get a call from someone the sense that they're motivated, I try to qualify it and make sure and say, okay, so why not go with a realtor or whatever? And then they just tell me basically like, I've just had enough, or I've had enough of realtors or whatever. And then I just basically say, okay, well, for what you told me about the property, you mentioned that some things need to be touched, the roof needs to be done, this and that. For properties in the area, I'm like, I always like to see, I think I'm probably in this range. I usually don't want to go too far low on what I think, like if they bring it up or whatever, what they say. I usually try and come down like maybe let's say 50K or something like that. Because if you start at like, they're looking for 700 and you say, well, I think I'm probably more like 400K, like that's the end of the conversation. I mean, even people that are motivated are going to not, but sort of just say, okay, well, this is kind of the market. I'm in the range of, let's say, like if they're asking 700, I'm like, I'm between maybe low to mid sixes, something like that. Maybe of course I have to see the property. I can't say. And I go, I'm like, is that a ballpark that sounds kind of like what you're thinking? And they're just like, yeah, that makes sense. It's not until you actually go to the property and see what you're up against, and you can point out, well, hey, I don't know if you noticed this, but like the hot water tank is all rusted.
Yeah.
I'm going to need a new one there, or maybe like when's the last time you had this serviced, or this thing looks like this is going to be done to meet code, or whatever, right? You're going to find problems. Then you present the case of this is like my rough budget, but this is the cost of financing, whatever. You don't have to get too specific, but they get the sense that it's going to be a time-consuming, costly endeavor, right? And then you say, so you told me that you want to get out for this reason. I'm here, where are you at? And that's the other thing too, on the phone, if price comes up, you don't want to be the one to name the first price. You sort of ask, okay, well, what are you thinking? Right. And whatever number they say, you respond. It doesn't matter. You say the number back to them, 700,000.
You do. You repeat the number. Okay.
This is a strategy in negotiation. It's called mirroring.
Yeah.
You don't want to challenge their number. You just repeat. You say, I'm sorry, 700,000. As a question, because that's also kind of getting like you're doubting. You're just repeating what they're saying.
Yeah.
And then they're in a position where either they'll justify it or they'll come down.
Or they'll doubt it. They'll doubt.
That's the thing.
Especially if with the right tone, if you provide tone and surprise, in negotiating, sometimes I go, really? Like, wow. Okay, sure. Yeah.
The investor, maybe, right? Yeah. So right there, and this is the other thing too, is you're always trying to, like, I got the shirt, I got coffee, I got feet. When you're talking on the phone, try and get like a bit of leverage on that conversation. Don't just start negotiating. Let them negotiate against themselves for you. So one way is the way we just said, like 700,000 down. And then if they're at, let's say, like, 730 or whatever, and that you're going to be in the sixes, you could either just sort of say like, hey, so 730, huh? I don't know about that. If it was the case that I couldn't come at 730, I mean, is this the end of the negotiations? Go, well, no, of course not. And you go, okay, well, like, are we looking like maybe below 7? They could say, yeah, now I've knocked off $30,000.
Yeah.
Say, let's take $30,000 off. They did it. So in some sense, you could call this, I guess, manipulation. But at the end of the day, if this person is open to selling, and if they want to move quickly or get rid of the headache or whatever the case may be, ultimately they're the one in the position knowing, hey, I know I can, like, I asked the question, why not listen to the realtor? They know they can get more. They don't want to go that way. Yeah. So now you're just opening the door, because the reality is you need to get a solid price. The market is insane. Cost to market your properties is insane, like, or to send out flyers or whatever. Like, you don't know. It's feast or famine when it comes to entrepreneurship. You don't know when the next deal is coming. You assume it's always there for sure. Expect the best, but plan for the worst. You need that big price, because you may even see the deal as, hey, I can maybe get like a 30K assignment fee on this. And then you put it out to your buyers. They're going, no way, I'll give you 5K.
Yeah.
Oh, I was expecting 25. Where did this come from? Right. Yeah. You could be shocked. And sometimes you even have to go back to a seller and say, hey, I know that we agreed to this. We need to come down actually another, let's say 20K or whatever. Because maybe you find that for whatever reason, you didn't know that street or whatever was on a different tangent, than, and people that more, let's say, more focused in that area, they might say, yeah, I just listed a property and I thought that would have been, but it turns out this is where it's at. So I'm not taking it there.
Yeah. Like, right? One street to another street, it could be a difference of 50,000 easily.
100%.
Or more. Yeah.
That's definitely the case. So I don't know if I answered your question. I went on a bit of a tangent there, but feeling out people. Oh, so that's the thing.
The buyer. The buyer.
Sorry, were you asking me about the buyer?
Yeah. When you actually sell it, when you present it to your buyers list, like some of them, you were telling me that some of them are fearful, they're cautious about certain things.
Hmm?
How should they approach you, or how should the conversation be with them?
Well, if someone's interested, usually you'll know. Like if they say, "Hey, can we chat about the property?" Like
Yeah.
they'll call in 10 minutes. That's a person who's like definitely interested. I usually don't. There's no point in me trying to assuage anyone's fears. I again am trying to understand where they're coming from, and I say, "I get what you're saying. I had the same concern. The reason that is not a concern here is because this has this going on, and maybe I didn't like make that clear on the ad or whatever." And they'll say, "Okay," or maybe they'll say, "Yeah, but," or whatever. And in the case that someone is like, um, if I get the sense they're trying to work with me, I'll obviously negotiate if I have a relationship with someone and I get the sense that maybe something's off, maybe I missed something, maybe they know the street better, whatever. If there's like legit reasons, of course, right? Sometimes people just call me and I know the way they're talking, they're trying to like position me to lose money, like in
Framing,
that
yeah.
conversation, right? They're framing
Framing
it,
you,
they're trying.
yeah.
I'm like, look, I'm not playing that game with you. If you can find a better deal, I wish you all the best with that. I got
Yeah,
serious people to talk to, like
yeah.
and that's the other thing too, is if you have a smaller buyers list, you have fewer buyers. And I'm saying, even if you have like 1,000, let's say, buyers, you're only gonna get like a handful of people who actually show up. And even out of those handful of people, one or two people actually might make the deal happen.
Yeah, I've seen it
So
as
you
well.
really,
I've seen it where
yeah,
we're expecting like five people, and it's like one person shows up or two.
yeah.
But even just two, I've bought properties in the past where the other person did influence my presence as well. Like I've influenced their presence, and
Like you're saying, you're going to a wholesale deal, and that influenced your.
yeah, exactly, yeah. So I
Yeah,
was
yeah,
there.
yeah.
I didn't purchase it. I didn't do it, but he purchased it, and I'm sure my presence increased his bidding price. And I happened to me as well, where I was there and I gave a price, and then the sold. I think the guy who's there, I knew him. He's like, a couple days later, he goes, "I'm not going to bid on it." I'm like, "I already gave a price on it." It's like we're already buying it.
Yeah, yeah. No, I hear you there. Um, you said there was interesting. I just lost it for a sec, but I don't know. Maybe we go back to, I guess, the dynamic of dealing with sellers and kind of getting to that point, because again, maybe we touched on that a lot, but
Yeah, we
I'm just
did,
trying
we
to think.
did.
What can I add?
Yeah,
I
I
want
have
to see, like, maybe. Yeah, go ahead.
the relationship you have with the buyers. That would be interesting because you were saying that some of them just don't understand, or they're fearful, or they don't have the funds yet.
So that's another thing too. I've been in a situation more than once, a couple times, where things got very, very sticky. So
Ooh,
one
sticky.
tip, as in, a lawyer gets involved after the fact, and then they
Mm,
decide that they're on this righteous quest to screw over the wholesaler who's just greedy and wants to screw over
yep.
people, right? I have that, right? That happens. So, like for example, one that was an amazing case, and I like to bring this up because it's just so stark contrasted from that idea. Is I bought a property from a guy that was in his 70s. He called me. He told me, my parents built this house. I've been in this house my whole life. I wanted to keep it. I just can't keep up with it. I've gone up on a ladder and done stuff. I've fallen. He's got a
Mm,
bad foot. It's going up to his hip. That's bad. He's got his little, button emergency collar thing,
mm,
like
yeah.
and this guy just could not keep up with the property. So I go over there. The first time we met, and this is one example of something that was like a lot of hours. Like I went over there a couple times and had coffee with him. The first time it ended as this, I don't know. Let me take the offer to my lawyer. I said, no problem. I give him the offer. He takes it to his lawyer. And then he goes, okay, it was fine. Like, let's get back together. I said, no problem. So we go back together.
Nothing
So
signed yet.
I make the offer.
Nothing is signed.
I signed it and handed it over
Okay.
in order for him to sign it if he wanted to. Like I gave, so yeah, what I do is often, if I have my schedule A where you put your conditions, I
Mhm.
always insert at least two exits. So an exit clause means you have a certain period of days to fulfill this clause. And if you do not, the deal is null and void, or however it is that you want to term
Yep.
it. You have to send in a waiver of that condition in order to move forward and firm it up. So the reason I do this is because, maybe I don't have everything in play that I need, or maybe I want to take those days to assign it, or whatever the case may be.
Smart.
So I usually do two just to make sure. You can do one, but I usually do two just to be super sure. One is a inspection clause. I don't specify that I need to get it done by an inspector. I just say it's going to be an inspection by someone I deem to do that, either my contractor, myself, my partner, whatever the case may be. The other one is solicitor's approval. Solicitor and partner approval. So in that clause, I word it so that my solicitor and or my partners in the deal get to say, you know what, Alex, you're crazy. You paid too much for this. We're not doing it. And if they say that, guess what? I'm out, right? So I need to waive those two conditions, and that's
So
how you get
you
yourself
give
security.
them 2 days basically. Like you give
No,
yourself
actually,
2 days.
I'll give myself well, if I make an offer and it's revocable, right? Like I want to give them maybe a day at most. If I'm going to make my offer and name my number, put it down on paper, a day at most. Because if you give them a couple, 2, 3, 4, 5 days, they're going to shop the deal around, call their wholesalers or whatever, and then they're going to try and come back to me and make it go up. So you don't want to do that. It needs to be, look, does this work for you? Yes or no? Yes, perfect. Then we're doing it, right? If they need to go talk to a lawyer, I'll add a provision in my. I usually don't leave it in there as my base, but if they want to go talk to a lawyer, I go, okay, no problem. So this is conditional on 1 day or 2 days, whatever. Lawyer's approval, seller's lawyer's approval. I initial it, they initial it, off they go. So then that way you can firm up the deal with them, and then they just take it to the lawyer. I mean, in that case, it doesn't really matter if they sign or not because the lawyer can always kibosh it, right? They can always say, well, lawyer's approval, I don't approve. Done,
Yeah.
right?
So
And then
what did the lawyer
out.
say in this case? This case.
So in this case, so this is what's so crazy. I offered him, I think, the price that it would have sold on MLS. So he made the price he would have got, plus he didn't pay any realtor commissions. So of course the lawyer's
and
like,
clearly
yeah,
the house was probably paid for as well.
Free and clear, right? I think I maybe he had like a small mortgage, but basically. So I gave him tons of time. He's like, well, I got a bunch of stuff I got to move out. No problem. Let's put it 6 months down the road. Does that work for you? Mm-hmm. So I'm offering him MLS. I'm giving him 6 months. And the reason I offered him MLS, by the way, is not because I'm nuts. It's because I had someone I knew who I could assign it to who was willing to pay more than market because their numbers were predicated on student rentals. They had others and they knew what they needed.
Yes.
They didn't care. They were just looking for inventory, right? So whatever, that's fine. If this guy can make more money than he needs, I mean, he's an older guy, he's going to need it. Whatever, I don't care. But anyways, what ended up happening was that first lawyer who went through with it, we go through it, sign, whatever. Some months go by, I check in with the seller, everything's good. And then out of the blue, I get this call from some lawyer, not related at all to this transaction, saying, okay, so I have someone who can act as power of attorney if necessary. And I'm like, I don't know who you are. I don't care. I'm not like, well, this person, they're older and they didn't know what they were doing. And I'm like, they were of sound mind when I was there.
Was it the child or the children who were kind of?
What we found out what it was. I'm pretty sure. So when I asked him, who's this person? It's like, well, he's this guy and he helps me out, but he's always trying to have it his way, and I don't really know. So like, someone's trying to get control of this transaction for some reason, and I imagine it has to do with money. Call me crazy.
Yes, of course.
Anyway, so they try to allege that he was not a sound mind because he's old. So I was like, well, he knew his name. He knew who I was. He knew the dates. He understood the transaction. He took it to a lawyer. I don't really care what you think. I'm not doing anything. They said, well, no, we're gonna get someone in there to do a cognitive assessment. And I said, all right, whatever, right? Whatever, have it your way, dimwits, right? So they stretched this whole thing out by months and months and months. The whole transaction, I think in total, was about 9 or 10 months to actually close this thing. So they tried stretching it out. So what they did, here's how it was they had this person go in that they chose, and they went and saw this person, and they go, yeah, we feel that, there's reason to believe he doesn't have cognitive wherewithal. And so my pushback was, I understand that you did this assessment. I don't care. So that this was the case when I bought it. He needed to sell. I paid him MLS. There's not really a better offer this guy is going to get. This makes no sense. If I offered him $1 million for a $300,000 property, am I taking advantage of him? That's stupid. Someone's trying to screw this up, right?
Yeah.
So I fought them. Eventually, went to they got worn out because I would not let them go. I kept pushing back. I don't care. Sue me or try to do whatever. So eventually, they handed over to the justice. What's it called? The justice. I forget what it is. Just some government appointed person,
adjudicator or some sort, like a judge of some sort.
It's not really, yeah, something like that. It's some sort of justice of something. I forget exactly what it was, but it's basically an official thing. So when they took it over, they looked at this and they're like, "Oh, this is fine. I mean, you're paying more than it's worth. Take it. Like, we don't care. Like, he needs to move. He's going to be put into a facility. We'll arrange that for him, and this is the best deal he's going to get." I was flexible with closing date. I paid him well. So this whole thing.
So they were looking to buy at a cheaper price then.
Yeah, they were trying to kill the deal because he has a relationship with this older guy. Maybe the older guy would have a soft spot for him and say, yeah, okay, maybe you could buy it for 270 or 280 or whatever, right? Mm-hmm. And then he could do what he wants to do with it. So something, I assume, who knows, right? Yeah. But I mean, I don't think he did this in his best interest because I paid him more than it was worth. So you're actually working against he needs to move. He's hurting himself, man. And the property's in disrepair. It's the basement's getting water. It's crazy. So the whole point of this story was I didn't have a witness. Had a
Oh,
witness at the time of signing, someone who knew this person,
yes.
understood this is what I'm paying, this is the market, this is what, like, he agrees, you see that he agrees, you sign witness, right? If I had had a witness there, that would have saved me all the trouble. So if you're going into a property and it's an elderly type person, you might want to consider having a witness. Say, do you have like a neighbor
Yes,
or
yes,
someone who might want to come and just to make sure that this is all above
yes.
board? Then you save all that trouble. If you don't, lawyers will jump all over it and try and make you out to be a villain, and they'll just go with this narrative until they win. And that's
Oh
the
yeah.
really truth of it.
I've
They
been
make a lot
there.
of
I've been
trouble.
there. They'll
Yeah,
tear it apart and they'll look at every single
yeah,
detail and look at all the
yeah.
mistakes just in order to say this is null and void. This contract just means
Yes.
nothing.
Yes.
Yeah.
And ultimately they will work again. I had another deal. They tried, like, lawyers tried to come in and I got it at a good price. And they said, same basic story. This person didn't know. Okay. And then they said, well, why don't we go like 80K or no, 60K more than you offered? And I said, well, obviously it doesn't work for me. That's why I offered what I offered. And they said, well, you have to pay 60K. And I'm like, well, look, I'm not letting go of this deal, but I actually have a smarter idea, Mr. or Mrs. Lawyer. Why don't we do this? Let's have the person put it to market so that they can get, let's say, like 615 or whatever it was on the market, or no, sorry, 640 or whatever it was in the market. I'm going to take my fee out of that. They'll be left with more than what they needed. Like, they got, like, in the end, I think 30 or something came more than what even the lawyer suggested. Now, of course, there's some feeling like I did something. So that was a deal I absolutely hate, by the way. I don't want any transaction to be in any way bad blood. Anybody thinks something happened that shouldn't have happened. Life's too, I don't want to swear. Okay, life's too short.
You can swear. You can swear.
Fucking short. I don't want to deal with this fucking bullshit. I want deals that are easy. I want everybody happy because I can do that. I know I can do that. I
Yeah.
don't need to screw anybody over. I just want to live in peace and mind my own business. Just move on. I don't need this crap. So, but it happens. So you have to be careful. Make sure, like, in the case of someone's older, get a witness.
Yep.
And even, I don't know about the legality of this, but you might want to let them know, hey, this conversation is being recorded. If they're in the property, whatever.
Oh, you do
That
record them.
way,
Or do you?
if I don't have a witness, yeah, I'll say, hey, look, I'm just going to record this conversation for training purposes, whatever.
Okay.
Ultimately, the thing is, because here's the thing, is that they'll challenge, well, they didn't say that. I'm like, yes, they did.
Yeah.
That's my word against the lawyer, right? And I'm
Yeah.
screwed. So now, if I have that recording and they say, well, they didn't say it, right here, buddy.
Yeah.
Right here. Done. There. Like,
I get that. Do you have lawyers in your family?
Oh, unfortunately not. But I do have great lawyers I've worked with, and that's the other thing too, is I found this so many times. If you're dealing with a lawyer or a contractor or anybody, and they're giving you shit, like they make you feel like you don't know what you're doing or whatever, you don't need that person. You need someone who's on your side. Again,
Yeah,
like the
yeah,
emotional thing, someone who
yeah.
understands where you're coming from. They're trying to serve you. That's an indication that someone is actually there for you. And you can't really fix that with contracts. I mean, at the end of the day, it's a handshake, more or less, unless you want to go through
It
the whole
is. It
rigmarole
is. Yeah,
suing
I
people.
agree. So certain contracts, it's just ink and paper. There's not much there. You got to hold
Yeah,
it. You got to hold it up and back it up with often funds.
the funds in your time for sure,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
stress.
And what I
Yeah,
like is
you don't want that.
often people when they sign the contract, they think it's bought or sold. They think it's gold. I'm like, no, 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 no. Wait till the money's in the bank.
Yeah.
That's the only
Oh,
time. That
when
happens all the time. If
oh,
everybody just wants to, it's sold. It's great. Oh, perfect. No, no, no.
it's
Hold on
basically
until it's done.
each deal is like you're giving birth to a child. The stress does not end until you are dead. Like the deal like money has to be in your pocket.
Yeah,
Now
yeah,
you can
yeah,
relax.
yeah.
Nothing is a sure thing, right? Like,
It's so important. It happens all the time. It happens all the time. And I forget. It's one of those rules. You gotta believe it. This is
that's it.
a lot of Alex. This is thanks. You brought a lot of valuable knowledge on this one. Tons of information on wholesaling, on how to deal with people as well, and how to deal with certain lawyers as well. So thank you very much. So where can people find you?
People can always email me at treetopresidential@gmail.com. On social media, I'm not so strong. Alex Kourmanis, Kourmanis spelled Kourmans. That'll be on the description. You can find me on Facebook. On Instagram, it's treetop_residential. Although, again, I'm not really too fond of the gram. I deleted that off my phone, by the way. And if you read it, because you got Atomic Habits, right?
Yeah.
So you basically want to keep those things in a location. Like, that's on my computer. If I need to go on social media, it has to be a challenge. I have to go over there. I can't just have it on my phone.
Oh, yeah, 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 yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
They mentioned that. They definitely mentioned that,
Yeah.
especially because social media is so much more of a distraction. It's a killer creativity. Like, how do you get anything productive done if you're constantly being distracted by social media? I definitely agree.
100%. It creates, again, the dopamine situation that you get on that. the artificial, like your brain gets rewired by going through that and looking at quick information. You stop doing the deep dive and you just scroll
Yeah,
mindlessly.
yeah.
It's
So
built
so
that
what is
way.
it you what is it you do in order to get on
I just
social
keep it on.
media?
If I want to do it, I go on the website. I go on my computer and I do that. I leave my computer in my office and I take my phone elsewhere. And if I'm on my phone and I'm bored, I go, oh yeah, I don't have social media. Well, I can go on YouTube and learn something,
Okay, so
or I
what
can.
what do you have on your phone? Just to sum this up. What do you?
Oh, this is the fancy schmancy iPhone 30 or the hell it is.
Yeah.
But I've got basically just like YouTube. Whoops, man, I'll look at my credit card. One second. I've got like YouTube Music, Waze, and I've got some other stuff. Like I've got a security camera for my buildings.
Yeah.
Like just a couple of whatever. But usually I just stay on this
Basic
page and
stuff,
keep it
nothing to
simple.
distract
Yeah,
the mind.
that's right.
That's very
It's
smart.
that stuff is free for a reason because you pay with your time and energy, and it will
I
affect you.
agree.
Nobody's a robot. You're
I agree.
emotional. If you see something about Palestine, Israel, you're gonna get riled up. It's gonna shoot your blood pressure up, and then you're gonna get distracted.
I
Forget that. You have
agree.
no
I
control over
agree.
that. Just
The mind is of you got to protect that mind space because
you
tons
have
of
to be a
people are trying to
guardian.
get in, and it can destroy you. It can really destroy you.
Can I? I know we're wrapping up here. Are we good for time? Where are we at
Yeah,
now?
yeah, we're good.
Okay, I'll take a little panoramic here just to show everybody. So on the back here, I've always got like my little kind of artwork and what
Yeah.
have you, right? But I printed up these photos. That's a picture of the Road Warrior. If you ever seen Mad Max 2,
Oh yeah, yeah.
so that to me, like he's got a shotgun because there's a guy that dot there's a motorcycle coming to get him. He has no ammo in this gun, but he pulls it out and he stands his ground. So I'm like, that's a reminder. And then I've got, if you ever seen Letterkenny, this guy here is a good old boy. You want to be like the main guy, Wayne. This is a cartoon called Way of the House Husband, where this character used to be a gangster, but now he serves his wife, and it's really funny and cute.
Okay,
Got
all
my
right.
skateboarding motivation over here. I've got my. This is what your vision is. Your vision board, right? So this is your plan for
Oh,
the year
love it.
2024,
Love it.
right? This is all in front, and I got my Clint Eastwood. I got my
What,
Spider Man.
what's the vision board? What's the house? I guess it's the middle, right in the middle. What is that?
Oh,
It's like a
yeah. So eventually, like when we get to a position that we feel we're comfortable with, I want to get like a huge lot, and I want to have our own house built in there. I want to have like a barn for like a skate park. So my skate park is where is
cool.
that?
That's a
Right over
lot of
here.
lawn to cut.
Oh my
I'm a
god,
city guy.
yeah.
That's a lot of lawn there.
I mean, who knows what the actual thing will turn out to be? But I definitely want to have space and some land because I also want to maybe grow food someday. You never know.
Beautiful.
Um, but
Beautiful.
library, arcade, potential kids in the
I
future.
love
Got
it.
some
Love
jujitsu
it.
over here. Yeah. So this stuff it makes an impact on you because the real thing, and this is again, we're going back to social media, is there is so much to distract you and occupy your time and energy. Don't forget who you are. Don't forget what
Mm.
you're doing this for. Hang on to that. Like your life depends on it because you will forget. You start a goal in January, by February, March, you're already gaining weight again, or who are you? What is this for? Don't forget. Like put it up
Yeah.
everywhere. Keep it because the other thing too is it makes you energized. You see it and this makes you smile. Okay, forget what's going on in the world on Instagram or Facebook and arguing with people. That's a waste of time. Just yes, I'm happy. Okay, back to 5 more cold calls. You get
Yeah.
energy from that and
Back to
drive.
grind to
So
what you want to build, what you want to become. I think
that's
that's
right.
I love your message as well because when you speak about this, it's you speak from the heart about this. Like you
Yeah.
truly believe in it,
Mm-hmm.
and I completely I'm on board with what you're saying. Completely,
Again,
completely.
if you want to be, or if anybody listening wants to be a nerd, like my background again is philosophy and cognitive science. So the cognitive science background I got, you have no clue how fragile like our thinking is, how many influences there are, and where our energy goes, and how we can get leverage and how we can lose leverage. It's such a delicate act.
How powerful as well. Your
Yeah,
thoughts become your reality.
yeah. Your thoughts
So
become
powerful. And
reality, and your words.
everyone mentions it, but when you fully experience it, it becomes such a huge foundation in one's
Yeah.
life.
Even drifted away from it, and like moved, like especially during COVID, I kind of retreated a little bit inside where it's like mentally it's a bit safer for me. And I stopped doing this stuff. I kind of was just getting a bit more stressed and distracted. And it's like that didn't pan out. So I go from using it before to falling off with it. And I'm like, no, I got to get more leverage and throw. And again, the blue shirt, throw everything you have at your dreams, man. Go for it.
Thank you, Alex. We'll end it off at there because I think I love speaking with you. I think you got some great thoughts. So we will talk again for sure. Thank you.
I'm looking forward to it. Let's do
Okay.
it.
Bye bye.
Be well. Thank you.